All right, well, welcome to the Heart of a Woman. I'm your host, Jaynell, and this is a place where we have conversations many people are thinking about, but few people are willing to have. And today it's not about pointing fingers. It's not about blaming a Black man. It's not about blaming a Black woman. Today is about understanding. Because we never understand the pain behind the behavior, we'll keep repeating the same cycle generation after generation. And my prayer is that after today's conversation, that your heart will open, you will start healing, and you will gain a different perspective. I just want to give my personal story before I get started, because I believe this is going to be an amazing show today with my guest. I believe that I may have to split this up into 2 episodes. It's going to be so good. But I want to start with my personal story. I got pregnant at 17. He was the love of my life at that time, whatever love was for me. And a few days ago, my daughter, she celebrated her 30th birthday. And I remember 14 years later, she tried to reach out to her dad. You know, social media makes it easy for you to connect with someone. And she reached out to him and she said, "Hey, do you know who I am?" And he was like, "I do, but I will need a DNA test to prove that you're mine." And it was at that moment when she was sharing that with me, it crushed me as a mother. And it crushed her as a daughter. And so today's conversation is really personal to me because I want to know why men pull away from responsibilities and the effect that it has on our children and our children's children, and even the way they interact into their own personal relationships. And so today, as we delve deeper into this type of conversation, I'm really excited to have Richard on the show.
Thank you.
Welcome, Richard.
Thank you for having me.
Are you ready to get into this deep conversation?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
So just tell me, what is a man thinking of? About, or what is he thinking of when he walks away from his children or his child?
Well, I mean, that's a broad question because it depends on the scenario, the situation, his foundation, where does he come from, what that relationship was about, what is it about him that felt like he needed to not be there anymore. So as we delve into the conversation, we'll figure out there's layers to a man walking away from his family. Myself personally, I would find it very difficult to walk away.
Yeah, I just want you to help me understand, the inside of men, what's going on in their mind that allows them to just disconnect and just start living a different life. Like what is that component? Because, and today we're having this conversation about our culture, our community, our Black men, our Black women. And this is a really difficult conversation to have. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's easy, but it's one that's necessary. Because when we look at what's going on in the homes, a lot of the homes are fatherless. And we don't understand the impact that has on a child. I mean, all the way to adulthood. And so how do we have these difficult conversations about the mental capacity of a Black man? If that makes sense.
It does. It does. I think that's a good starting point, Jaynell, is we overlook the mental health part of being in a relationship. And I think everyone has mental health circumstances and impact in their life at some point whether it's through childhood, adulthood, but when those scenarios are undealt with, it manifests itself in other ways in other situations, including relationships, abandonment, lack of accountability, lack of responsibility. What did you learn coming up as a child? What did you experience? So there are a lot of layers and a lot of factors that contribute to someone having the mindset that, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you and I, we started to have like this deep conversation before the show started today. And a lot of it, what we were talking about as women, as Black women, we don't understand the pressure of being a Black man. And since you are a Black man, just tell us what that pressure is like, because you started to say some stuff to me and I was like, whoa. Like we don't stop to think about that. We just look at social media. We just look at what the rappers are doing and how they are dishing out the money, and it's hard being a Black man, right?
It is extremely hard. And that's one of the things, reality TV, social media, I believe, to some extent, cause more damage to not just the Black men, but people in general, where, it paints this perfect picture of this is what life is, this is what it could be. And a lot of people try to hold people to that expectation, which is unrealistic. And then also, people live out loud now, where instead of having those tough conversations, we take them to platforms and we let society into our homes, into our lives, and judge us and tell us how to behave in certain characteristics. And people are not typically qualified to advise someone on one scenario, not knowing where it derived from. There may be childhood trauma, there may be abandonment issues, or maybe adopted or illegitimate, like your scenario with your daughter. Like, that's trauma, right? And in our culture, in our community, typically we don't deal with trauma very well. We tend to suppress it. It sometimes is a sign of weakness, but we don't get the therapy. We don't get the help that we need, and it lingers and it causes deeper issues. For example, like your daughter reaching out to the father, his response, I'm sure that was his best response at the time. But if he had spoken to someone that had the knowledge, they would have told him that probably wasn't the best response, because that in itself was traumatizing, because that's a sign of rejection. That's a sign of being unwanted, right? So now she has to carry that for a very long time, that her initial contact with who she believed was her biological father, the first words said were rejection to her. So, and that's part of the mental capacity that we really don't understand, that not only have we been traumatized, but a lot of times, because we're ignorant to it, we cause more of it. Yeah. Like we said, hurt people all the time.
And I take into accountability my part, my role that I played in it, being very young, not really understanding how this could have affected her life and my life. But it was a lot dealing with that. I was angry, I was frustrated, I was bitter, I was feeling rejected. Like, Richard, this man was my first everything. So to have a man say that, I also felt the rejection as well. You're rejecting everything that we shared. You're rejecting the fact that this could possibly be your daughter. And it always be the ones that look exactly like daddy. But when we think about how our Black boys grow up, don't cry, don't show your emotions. How has that played a role in the Black men in our society and how they deal with trauma or just communication on the whole?
I think that's a very good question, Jaynell. I think foundationally speaking, we were raised in my generation to be tough. Man up. If you cry, it's a sign of weakness. You better have a legitimate reason to show tears and vulnerability. Right? So publicly for a man, the stigma that's been attached with expression and emotion has been tied to weakness. So men typically suppress, and we're very good at suppressing. 99% of Black men, if you ask how you doing, most of them are going to say, all right, I'm good, right? That I'm good is so loaded with questions that have not been asked. And most often it's easier to receive that I'm good and walk away from it. Because you don't have to unpack. I'm good. I give you a nod, he's good, right? But there's so much that he's dealing with. You know, as I walk outside my house as a Black man, I'm already at a negative. I'm already at a deficit in society, regardless of what my intentions are, what my background is, just the melanin in my skin in some communities. I'm already leaving my driveway in the negative, right? So society, to some extent, has already pegged me as something that I may not be, right? Or maybe, and not necessarily getting the justification of being that. So when you start subtracting, as I'm moving throughout my day, I'm a Black man that's being deducted from without doing anything negative.
Right.
Right. So then when you put me into the responsibility of a relationship, now she has expectations for me to perform despite the 20-30% that has already been subtracted from the moment I got out of bed, from the moment I walked outside, from the moment I landed on my job. I'm already at a deficit in bias and opinions about me that may not be true. So then when you add the strain of accountability, responsibility, relationship, that is more
pressure,
hidden pressure. Hidden pressure. So, you know, this can cause a young man being raised in that kind of circumstance to grow up with an enormous amount of pressure just by being a black young man. And then he gets into his relationships, and that carries over to a relationship. But you never hear it, but he wears it.
And it plays on his mental psyche. So I was surprised to see that the statistics of young Black men that unalive themselves is so high. It makes me really just question myself. Like, how do we not recognize what's going on in the life of our men? And I know it's because they don't talk. You know, men, they don't like to go to the doctor. They're not vulnerable, and they're always, I'm good. But how do we get to the bottom of it so that a man understands that he can cry, like he can be vulnerable?
I want to debunk the myth that men don't communicate well. I think men are the best communicators. I really do. I really believe men are some of the best communicators. I think we've been labeled as non-communicators because of the inability to understand our way of communicating.
That part.
So we are communicating. And, you know, what I think the mislabel of men not being able to communicate or express themselves is literally bottled up in his ability of feeling free to do so.
Safe space.
So if you feel like you're going to be judged, and whatever it is that you express that you're feeling, a lot of times women need that feeling that he has to be validatable.
Got you.
So as a man, when you feel like you have to be put on trial and validate an emotion or a feeling, making it legitimate to her, may inside say it's not worth it to even go through it because I'm being judged as I'm speaking it. So I suppress it. And therefore, in return, you're saying I have the inability to express, but I tried. Did you provide a platform? Is it because you were defensive and maybe were not prepared to hear something that may be painful or blameful for yourself? He never got an opportunity to get it out, so he suppressed it. So he said, I'm good. So what we do as men, we compartmentalize our ability to communicate, and we close doors. So when we feel like you're not going to be receptive to what we really feel, I give you a fun example. You wear a dress and you ask a man, how does this look?
Know where this is going.
He's already in prison by his expression, right? If it's great, regardless of what the answer is, as long as it's positive and presented in the right way, it's always going to be the right answer. But if it doesn't make her feel good and it's not presented in and packaged in a way that represents her way of criticizing constructively, and he don't have the ability to do that, then it's going to be negative. So what typically happens is he expresses himself based on what he believes that you want to hear,
right? Minus
the discord of his real reality sometimes.
So sometimes you guys really be wanting to say, if you don't take that dress off, but then you suck it up and you're like, it's not even worth arguing about. And then you said, honey, you look great. I love that dress on you.
Because we want to enjoy the rest of the evening.
And the rest of your life.
And sometimes you are beautiful. And sometimes it fits perfect. And sometimes it's right. But the question is, and I say this sometimes, where I could be right 90% of the times. And I'm a great man. You're so intelligent. You're smart. You're so smart. You're so bright. But the minute I say something that you don't necessarily agree with,
right,
all the 90% of me being right is now discarded for the 10% of me being right, but not making you feel good about me being right. So now, forget the 90%.
Forget the 90. It's like you just don't. I don't like the way you make me feel.
So that gets back to the communication part. Men can communicate. They do communicate. The question is, can women really understand how to listen? Because non-communication
is communication.
Non-verbal is
you're saying something.
Non-reaction
is you're saying something.
Everything you don't do, you are
saying something.
Everything you do, you
are saying something.
That's communication.
I get it. And it took me forever in a century to get that understanding in my brains. But so what is one thing that you wish women knew about men that's important based on what we just talked about?
That typically we suffer in silence. And when we get to the point of expression, that means we have been suffering for a tremendous amount of time. So what I would like women to understand about men is that, no, it's not you, it's not us, it's really no one to blame. Sometimes this is a society thing. Like, a lot of us are born into situations, circumstances, houses where you don't talk back, you don't express yourself, right? You don't cry, right? So some of that leaves us in a place to be incapable of truly expressing, because we're thinking about the childhood trauma with expression. So we hold that back, right? But what could change the dynamic of that is providing safe space. To be an effective listener in a relationship, I believe you have to discard your personal intuitions and feelings and bias and strip yourself of your belief system so that you can hear and not make that person validate what they feel. Whether it hurts or not, what they're saying, you're allowing a safe space for it to be said. Don't listen to respond.
Right.
Remove your personal feelings from listening. And this is why it's difficult, because women are typically more emotional. So as you're feeling what I'm saying, you're responding to the feeling that it's giving you, not to my communication.
You know, as you were talking just now, I was just thinking about, the way God wired women. Okay, so we need a bestie to talk to, and sometimes we just need to just let it out and yap. And a lot of times men they don't like to talk as much as we do. We're the emotional creatures, and they're just, the problem solvers, so to speak. And sometimes that can be a clash because we want to talk. I want you to, give me a reaction, and you're like, okay, well, that was good.
Well, I think that's a good point. I believe women talk too much. Seriously, but you got to hear the other side. And I think men don't listen enough.
Now that I will not refute. But we do. But, God wired us this way. We need to talk to our men, and I guess because we talk so much, we don't understand, I'm okay. What does that even mean?
Well, I mean, I want to take some of the pressure off the women, because it's not the women's fault and it's not the men's fault. Communication is a skill, right? And it's something that we have to develop and work at, especially when you're dealing with two different demographics, two different upbringings, two different cultures, two different genders. We see things prospectively differently, right? So part of getting into a relationship is understanding how to navigate that relationship. What is that communication like? What is the nonverbals? What is the communication that's not happening that is actually happening? I'll give you a fun example. If you have a dog or a pet, why do you feed it? How do you know when it's hungry? How do you know when to walk it? How do you know when it's not feeling well? They don't talk.
You can see the emotions. You can read the...
Bingo.
Right.
You're paying attention to what's not being said. That is a form of communication. So if you pay that kind of attention to your mate, regardless of what's being said or expressed or not, it is always a form of communication. Even if you're sleeping an enormous amount of time compared to what you used to sleep,
there's something wrong.
That is a form of communication. If your appetite is changing, if you're saying no to things, right? If your habits are changing, these are all forms of communication. And then keep in mind, when people do talk, typically, the brain can only really receive about 30% of what's being communicated.
Right.
And that 30% is what that person perceived to be important. So effective communicating is very important.
That's really good, Richard. So when we think about our Black community, our young men, why is it so taboo to, and I know you said it could be a sign of weakness, but therapy, heal that wound. It seems like a lot of them are going into relationships with the old chip on their shoulder. And we're trying to figure out now why there's so many divorcees in our culture versus other cultures. how do we debunk that, or how do we break that down to see like what's the root of it? Because not that we're making excuses today, we're not pointing fingers, we're just really having this conversation that need to be had. Can you just take the layers off of that?
All right, I'm going to start with love. I believe we get into relationships based on what we believe is love. And as we go through the course of different relationships, a lot of times we don't understand. Love begins with self. So if you don't have self-love and you move on to the next relationship without self-love, how can you pass on what you do not possess for yourself? So I think when people heal before they move on, I think it creates an environment of new discovery. But then you go in not healed, you're coming in with bias, trust issues, brokenness, childhood trauma, right? Trust issues with a person that hasn't given you any reason to not trust them. All men are the same. Right. Where do you think that come from? See, that's a lie. The lie, and most of us live a lie. That's the reality of it. The lie is, this is just who I am, accept me the way that I am.
Right.
That's a lie.
Right.
That's who you made an agreement to be.
Right.
That's your safe haven. Because that doesn't put you in a position where you have to expand, self-evaluate, or grow. So you're going to say, accept me as I am.
Right.
And we believe that accepting someone as they are is a great thing. But what if you're not together?
Right.
Right?
9 times out of 10, they're not.
Most people are not together. But we are saying in a heartbeat, accept me as I am, but you are broken.
So can broken men have healthy relationships? Is that even possible?
I don't think so. I don't think broken men or women could have healthy relationships, because an unhealthy, unhealed person will eventually manifest problems.
Yeah.
There's no way to suppress the lack. There's no way to suppress the pain permanently.
Yeah.
You cannot be the representative for the rest of your relationship. Eventually, the true version of yourself will come out. And this is why it's so important to recognize where your brokenness is. I hear women all the time, and I hear men, mostly women, expect men to learn and know the triggers, right?
Of course.
So if I have to learn your triggers, that means that you're not willing to deal with what have triggered you. So you're not healed, and I don't expect anyone to get 100% healed, but I expect you to identify where your brokenness is, and then you deal with that. See, they preach 50-50 in relationships. I preach 100%, 100%. You should be your full self, and that person should be their full self. That lowers expectations of them being your therapist. Women look to men to be their therapists. Men look to women sometimes to be their nurturers, their mom.
Exactly.
Right? So if you take care of yourself with self-love and heal yourself, then you can be 100% available, and she can be 100% available. But when you bring brokenness into brokenness,
yes.
Need I say more?
So it's difficult for someone that has been broken with pain to actually love someone fully, because it always manifests in narcissistic behaviors, or you have a anxious attachment style, because before I even knew what that was, I had no idea what it was until I started going to therapy. And my therapist uncovered that my attachment style was anxious. And she started to ask me questions about, have you ever suffered from rejection or abandonment? And over time, those experiences created this person that was afraid and always flight or fright mode. Like I was just always, what you doing? Are you gonna leave me? Are we good? And it's very exhausting being someone that has an attachment like that. And so with her helping me to peel the layers back and to really get to the root of what my issue was. And I realized, believe it or not, and this is a true story, and I always get emotional when I talk about my grandfather. He was the love of my life. And the Lord took him when I was 8 years old. But I remember when I was knee-high to a grasshopper, like when I was a little girl, he would not let fly or dust land on me. Like I was the apple of his eye. And he made me to understand that. Like, all my cousins would be around and he'd be like, don't touch her. And he would take me and put me on his neck just so that I could be out of the fighting game, right? He gave me whatever I wanted. When I said I loved and adored this man, he was everything to me. And he always made me feel special and chosen and loved. Well, that's when I was a little girl. And so when I grew up, I still had that expectation. I didn't know I did, but I did. And when he died, I was so angry with God. I was like, of all the people in the world that you can take, you took my grandfather. Like there's so many people walking around now that are just existing. We say stupid things like that. So I was so angry. And I remember when because he passed in my parents' house. I remember sitting in the backyard underneath the grape tree with my hands folded, just angry with God that I'm never talking to you again. I'm so mad. And when I started to do therapy and, she started to peel back the layers and ask me questions. And I did therapy and also allowed the Holy Spirit to just unveil, some things, some past trauma that I had. And one night I was just praying and the Holy Spirit said, you gotta let it go. And I was like, let what go? And he took me all the way back when I was 8 years old. And I said to God, I was not talking to him again. I was just so angry. Now I'm a lovely 47-year-old about to be 48. I didn't think that was 40 years ago. 40 years ago. And the Holy Spirit was like, you need to deal with this. You need to let this go. And of course, you know what I did? I cried. I was like, but you didn't have to take him. And God said, you just let it go. So that was something that happened to me 40 years ago that I've been carrying in my adulthood. And I've been expecting relationships to be the exact same thing or to give me that adrenaline rush the way I felt when I was younger. Mm-hmm. And so if that happened to me, how much more important is it for a man, whether he feels like he have issues in his tissues or not? How important is it for him to just, sit down with a therapist every now and again to really see where his mental state is? Because I said earlier, our Black men, we have one of the highest statistics in just unaliving ourselves. And so help me with that.
I think, that's a lot to unpack.
I know.
And I'm glad you came to a term and you were able to get help and therapy to recognize what you were feeling. I think as it relates to what you were feeling, a lot of young ladies grow up and have the expectations of what it is that they experience in their childhood. To push back on that a little bit, I think to have any expectation is a setup for disappointment, because everyone is different. Everyone does things totally different. With that being said, if you go into a situation with expectations. That means that you're designing something for yourself that may not exist in the person that you're designing it for.
But what if we have like boundaries, Richard? So what are you saying? Like, don't go into a relationship expecting anything. Like just
100%.
But how do you navigate that? Like, can you say that to your daughter? Your daughter is
Yes.
sitting across this camera.
Yes.
Can you say to her, go into that relationship expecting nothing?
Expecting nothing. The beginning of the relationship starts with your standards, not you making someone adhere to your standards. If I am a door opener, those are my standards. Women get into relationships and bring the standards of making him be the gentleman that they desire. But if he's not wired to be that, then you try to form something that's not that way. And from that beginning, he's either going to become a character or a role player to please what he believes your desires are. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but that's a starting point. When you get into a relationship and you have no expectations, basically what that means to me is that you're willing to get to learn who this individual is, understand what your deal breakers are, right? Where you're willing to meet them in the situation as you begin to learn them. So my expectations is going to be getting to know you, not getting to conform you, not shaping you. See, women get into relationships and then they start shopping for the man because she wants him to look this way.
6 feet tall.
I want you try to design like you're Ken because you're Barbie, right?
Right.
And I think that's what happens with expectations. And then we're so disappointed when it doesn't pan out the way that we expected it to, because we came into expectations. If you accept people for who they are and respect them, and when they present versions of themselves that are boundary breakers, that are deal breakers, in lieu of moving on, you try to form and shape that person to make you more comfortable. And this is where the problem starts to manifest, because eventually people are going to be who they are.
Yeah. I think social media makes it difficult too. How many times have you scrolled and you've seen Black love? You know, and what is Black love? What does it even look like? And that gives you the perception that this is what Black love is. And if your relationship is not giving that, it's giving Black love, you know, then you have an issue. And you start struggling with the person that you're with. Well, this is okay for someone that's like me that isn't in a relationship. But what about people that are already married and are having or are not having those difficult conversations where, you know, they both probably need to go see a therapist? How do you verbalize that in that relationship?
Well, for me, Black love means totally different than the way you described it. You know, between artificial intelligence and these beautiful images of a beautiful toned Black woman with a beautiful man, and you know, like that's a beautiful picture. That's superficial. True Black love is Coretta Scott King and Dr. Martin Luther King. That's Black love.
Yeah.
Barack Obama, Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
That's Black love.
Yeah.
So, you know, we define Black love as perfect. Black love is ugly. So when Dr. King went on his marches and he took on the fight of his life, of civil rights, right? That means that Coretta Scott King had to take a position of support and understanding
Mm-hmm.
and patience, knowing that the compromise and the sacrifice was her family, and that the civil rights movement that he had began meant that she wouldn't always be in the front. So in order to do that, to accommodate his movement,
Mm-hmm.
him fighting for our rights, as an African American woman, that's where a lot of his strength comes from.
Mm-hmm.
But she was never in the front. So Black Love is him being beaten, put in prison, spit on and everything, holds down.
Right.
She loved him.
Mm-hmm.
Barack, a lot of the world hated him. A lot of people hated him
Mm-hmm.
because he was a Black man. But when he went back to Michelle, he knew what Black love was. He knew what real love is. Real love is really not as pretty as we paint it.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful in the essence of his existence and what makes it what it is. Real love is like agape love, still existing despite of the problems, despite of the harshness, despite of everything that comes with it that's stressful and difficult and hurtful, and to still be able to love someone despite, to me, is real love. And that's the reality in everyone's living room,
Yeah.
in everyone's bedroom. The reality is that it is far from beautiful every day. But we look at social media and we have this
Yeah.
expectation. What you don't know is that on average, every social media post that we see probably has 15, 20 takes before that one post. That's the reality. We don't see the ugliness. Right? People post perfection.
And then we take into consideration AI and filters. So you're not really getting the real deal.
But you know what? I don't blame technology. I don't blame social media. I don't blame reality TV. I blame the people. You're responsible for who and what you allow to influence you. The only thing that I believe should be influencing anybody is the Holy Bible.